else will impact corn that's a few feet tall. Yet I can be emotionally and mentally altered and occupied by events that happen around the world. You run over a mailbox in Port Huron, my mailbox couldn't care less. It's true. Doesn't have the ability to do that. It can't relate, can't respond. It's clueless. Yet, as it happened to be a few weeks back, when I heard of Fadi being in an accident in Erbil, 6,100 miles away as the crow flies, it has an impact. And it occupies a part of your thinking for a period of time. Such mental ability or emotion, a part of us unseen, must not have come from an inanimate object or material, but from a wise, personal, divine Creator. God is, and God has created. Those going to their Sunday school class may be dismissed at this time. And those that want to join them, maybe it's good to know that it's a handful of degrees cooler upstairs than it is down here right now. For how long? I don't know. But that fan up there moves significant percentage volume of air compared to even that big jet fan here for this. So, Job 12. You turn there. I'm going to do a quick review of where we were last week and pick up and if I fade, Ben will finish because he knows more about cells than I do. I don't mean the barred ones where you have mates, in rows. Though I have been in there through the corridors, thanks to a broken elevator in the guest elevator. And they promised me if I used the inmate elevator that they would let me out on the other end. And they did. Job 12. Ask the beasts, they'll teach you. The birds of the heavens, they will tell you. Or the bushes of the earth, they will teach you. Yeah, don't just be a tree hugger, be a tree talker. What's that? They'll teach you. The fish of the sea will declare to you, who among all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? In his hand is the life of every living thing and the breath of all mankind. I gave you by simple comparison last week a stack of playing cards, standard 52-card deck. You dealt out 17 cards face up, and you shuffle the cards again. It would take you 355 trillion times of repeating that to get the same 17 cards in order. That's 355 with 12 zeros. Now, if you have a protein, thousands of proteins needed for a cell, a protein with 100 amino acids in its chain, the probability of lining that up in proper order, again, is 1 followed by 130 zeros. When all the amino acids align, you still only have one protein. One dead protein, and thousands of proteins are needed for a cell. Had a fancy fine little image for you last week to put that image in your head of just some of the different parts of a cell. Proteins are dead molecules. So what makes life? Are you lost yet? I am. I was lost in school when they threw this stuff on the page and they had this simple image with like 3 parts of a cell. And he never gave me the comparison of how minute that is compared to everything else around us. The once considered simple cell is not all that simple. It has a plasma membrane, the wall of the cell with doors that open and close unexpectedly, with an army of guards controlling what comes in and goes out. Nucleus, the control center. It's the DNA. It's like twisted rope ladder containing specific, you can call it whatever you want, data. Doesn't matter to me how you pronounce that. Like a twisted rope ladder containing all the information for controlling the cell. Like a blueprint, operation manual for active controls containing literally billions of parts. It has the information to build proteins and can unwrap it and copy itself in minutes. How does something so tiny have a brain? You say, well, it doesn't have a brain compared to what we think of as a brain, but how does any particular part know what it's supposed to do? Because they've got all these different parts that do different things. It does. So how come I can't get the ones in my brain to do what they're supposed to do as frequently as I'd like them to do it? How is that possible? How is that even possible? And how do those who think they're smart conclude that that came from something inanimate? Reminds me of a song, doesn't it? It's designed to do what it does do, and it does do well, doesn't it? I think it does, don't you? What a phenomenal evidence of the creation of God. Now it gets even more confusing, at least for me. Within the nucleus is the nucleolus, which is where all sorts of other stuff that I don't even know how to pronounce anymore are made. They're like managers that read the blueprint of the cell, tell the workers in the cell how to build more. Now, I can't even show you how small the cell is because it's too small. All of this inside the cell that functions. How is it that there is some aspect of this minute cell that has the ability to direct other aspects of that cell to do what it's supposed to do and to change depending on where it is in your body? And how does a developing unborn child, how does all of that work where it knows how to be each different part, so we don't end up with 20 livers and no toes? How? So these ribosomes act like managers that read a blueprint in the cell. I don't know where the blueprint's stored. Tells the workers how to build more. Takes this information in the DNA, replicating the precise sequence of amino acids. No, that's random, isn't it? How do you replicate the exact sequence of amino acids when the possibility of a single protein doing this with 100 amino acids, which still leaves you with just one simple dead protein, and thousands of those are needed for a cell, and the possibility of that is 1 followed by 130 zeros. That is absolutely impossible. It takes the vast information in the DNA and replicates the precise sequence of amino acids in the proper order to make more proteins. And this is going on all the time. ER, not emergency room. Endoplasmic reticulum. It's like a factory of the cell. Folded membranes around the nucleus, along with the membrane, are proteins called enzymes. You've heard of enzymes, we just don't know what they are. They're special proteins that speed up the working process. They're like little Egyptian taskmasters. But apparently what they do. Then you have this Golgi complex. It looks like a small stack of different size pita breads, but very, very, very small. Because you're still looking at something you can't see without a significant amount of magnification. Proteins are made in one part of the cell. They have to work in another part of the cell, so this Golgi complex collects each protein and sends it to the proper part of the cell. It's like a warehouse. So there's like a warehouse in each cell. Vesicles, this is like the delivery service that the Golgi complex uses, little membrane sacs that move the proteins through the cell to where they're needed. Now, the interesting thing to me is this. You talk about timing. Mitochondrion has 2 layers of membrane. It looks like a bean. The outer membrane is smooth. The inner membrane is folded up so it can fit inside the outer membrane. It's like the power plant of the cell. It takes the energy from food molecules to make special molecules called ATP. Who came up with these names? I don't know. Why couldn't they have? And I don't know what ATP stands for. It's probably some, sure, something like that, which is the reason they use the abbreviation, the acronym of ATP. So, but the ATP is very fragile and can only hold together for a short period of time before it breaks off. So you've got a limited time span for that to be of any use. When the part breaks off, it releases energy that the cell uses. Well, that needs to break off at the right place for the cell to gain the energy where it needs it, when it needs it. ATP is always being made and used in every cell. They're made in the mitochondrion, then goes from there to where it's needed. When whatever part of this cell, remember, we're still talking about one simple cell. When part of that cell is beginning to go, boy, you know, I'm kind of wearing a little thin right now. What do? Do they get online? Do they order more energy? How does that work? The ATP is always being made, and then they go to where they're needed in the cell, where they break off and release the necessary energy for that part of the cell. All of this that goes on continually, just a simple, single cell. I don't understand all of that. The reason I go through all of that is because it blows my mind and makes it so overwhelmingly clear to me that there is a God, and He made everything that is. And it's almost offensive that somebody would think that I am foolish enough to think that even a simple single cell could come from any inanimate object. Job says, ask the beasts, they'll teach you. Birds, fish, they'll tell you life comes from God. Life comes from God. How more clear could that be? All of that complexity, all of that movement and interaction and in one simple single cell. You take the possibility of accurate replication, multiply it times the number of times that must take place within a single cell. There are not enough zeros in the world to put the possibility of that happening on the board. It can't be. The eyewitness record for us, and Job is aware of that, says even the animals can tell you. Colossians 1:16, all things were made by him, without him was nothing made that was made. That is about as clear and simple as can be. Now you could argue all day long with a naturalist that thinks what is what is, and it just came from what, No, they can't explain where anything came from in the first place, that just sort of developed into more complex things. Although we never observe anything simple. Let me put it this way. The only place in our life that we observe something that is relatively simple becoming increasingly complex is when the government is involved in the process. Because they can take anything simple and make it complex. But what's lacking even in that is the increase of information. You can't get that from nothing. All things were made by him. Without him was nothing made that was made. Nehemiah 9, verse 6. He declares, you made the heavens, even the highest heavens, all their starry host, the earth and all that is on it, the seas and all that is in them. You give life to everything, and the multitudes of heaven worship you. Astounding. The more we reflect on this, the more overwhelmed we ought to be. The more clear and obvious it ought to be that there is a creator, that there is a dramatic difference between naturalistic evolution and biblical creation. The worldviews, how everything that is rooted in those views is significantly distinct and different. You give life to everything, and the multitudes of heaven worship you. Where are the multitudes of heaven? Is he just talking about the angels? I think so. We have more stars in our galaxy than we have a clue. And there are more galaxies than we have any idea about. And you go to an expanse that enormous, and then you come back to all of these unbelievably tiny little parts that work with each other and know what they're supposed to do and when they're supposed to do it and how they're supposed to do it within just one simple cell. And you recognize that there is not a speck of dust in the universe which God is not aware. Just reflect on the distinct difference between naturalistic view and divine creation. Naturalistic view at its core is absolute nonsense. That order comes from disorder. That information can be gained from nowhere over the course of time. It's interesting to me, when the internet became a thing, most of you, not all of you, most of you remember when that was happening. There's a whole lot more information on the web now than there used to be. How did it get there? Just because the World Wide Web has been around for a few billion years? No. Somebody put it on there. Why is it that you can't trust everything that you read on the internet? Because people put that information on there. Some of them just plain misguided, some of them intentionally misguide you. Didn't happen by itself, not a bit of it. And here's the deal. When the internet goes down, it can't fix itself. Somebody external to the system has to step in and fix it. Interesting, isn't it? Sometimes all you have to do to fix it is push the button to let it turn off and push the button again and let it turn back on. Don't ask me why that works, but sometimes it does. And when I hear the term reboot, that's not what comes to my mind. If it's not working, a good... my father gives me different images when I think of a boot, so... What a difference a worldview makes. Consider the value of human life. How many cells there are in the human body. As Ben said, how these different cells function, same DNA, but function differently in different parts of the body. And this process is continually replicating. Cells are dying and new cells are growing. How does that happen? like I mentioned last time. And we still have the issue with life itself. Remember the Boeing 747? Literally millions of different parts. None of them flying by themselves. Put together by a team, a massive team, following the specific instructions of multiple engineers and designers. And you get that all put together with absolute perfection, and still it does not fly. Someone has to put fuel in it. And someone has to start it. And all things have to function properly, or you don't want to get on that plane. It doesn't happen randomly. We come back to the issue of life, and again, it leaves me in utter amazement. All the pieces, parts, the proper pieces and parts. But as humans, we are limited, both for ourselves and for our pets or any other living creature, even plants. All of the necessary structure can be there. And if there is no longer life, there is nothing we can do to give it life again. Nothing. Even if all the right stuff is there. Who among all these beasts, fish, birds, bushes, who among all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? In his hand is the life of every living thing, and the breath of all mankind. When I read Psalm 121 in the memorial service yesterday, it's these kinds of thoughts that flood my brain when I read, my help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. That is where your help comes from. This God who made the world and everything in it. Colossians 1 again, all things were made by him. Without him was nothing made that was made. This God gives me life. This God is my helper. This God sent his own Son to die in my place for my sin, that he might draw me to himself in beautiful relationship for all eternity. That's mind-boggling. Friends, we have the most incredible hope, joy, reality of life. And those who view the world from a naturalistic perspective have nothing to compare. The song says, nothing compares to you. Father, thank you for this wonderful creation that you have made. Thank you for the evidence, the increasing evidence. Even the more that we understand there's far more that we don't understand. And what we once thought was simple, we're finding out is far more complex than we actually thought it was. And it all gives evidence of the fact that life is in your hand. You didn't make it by trial and error. It wasn't the 50th or 60th attempt. You spoke, and it came into existence. And everything you made was very good. May we continually fall on our knees in awe before you and worship you as you deserve. In Jesus' name, amen.